Happy to welcome today, for those of you that are joining us for part two or section, our 10 a.m. session on Saturday. Again, my name is Sue Peterson, and I'm with the Kiwanis Club of East Lansing, and I should say in Grand Ledge, because I work with the Grand Ledge Michigan Club, and I'm the education chairperson for the Michigan District of Kiwanis. And one of the things we started last year and during our work from home time and our staying at home time and everything else that we've been through over the last year was some online programs to help our Kiwanis clubs out. We continue to have our Thursday night program, Kiwanis Let's Talk. That starts this coming Thursday. We have some great programs already started and scheduled. Brad Boyd from the Kiwanis International Office will be with us on Thursday at 8 a.m. to talk about virtual meetings and things he's learned over the last year for virtual meetings. So we're happy today to have with us Danielle Brousseau. Is that how we say it?
Brousseau, yes.
Thank you. Wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Danielle is actually a fundraiser as well, and we have started working with a partnership. Greg Smith from the Michigan District of Kiwanis office has started a connection with Kids on the Go, a program that's here in the Michigan District, and Danielle is a member of the staff there. And her interest in fundraising began about 18 years ago when she, of course, volunteered at her daughter's school auction gala, and I bet there are many of us that can say the same things. Over the 15-year span as chairperson for their gala, she has coupled her background in fundraising analysis and marketing with her passion for implementing creative and innovative events. After receiving several requests from other nonprofit organizations for guidance in planning their events in 2013, she founded On Point Consulting, a firm specializing in fundraising events to continue her love for partnering with nonprofits to bring awareness to their causes. Danielle wears a dual hat. She brings her event experience to her position as the event manager for Kids on the Go, a pediatric nonprofit program designed to provide special needs children ages 3 through 17 with physical, occupational, speech, and recreational therapies. She has worked with the Kids on the Go team with their fundraising since 2016. And of course, in 2020, faced with the challenges of uncertainty that caused by COVID and its effect on our nonprofit events, Danielle recognized the need to find alternative methods for her clients to reach their donor base and to raise the much needed funds that we all need for our causes. The quest resulted in the implementation of several creative and profitable events, and all delivered virtually, which is what Laura talked about earlier. Most recently, the virtual Bandstand Battle Gala, a benefit for Kids on the Go, was highly successful, and she's going to share with us her program and how it worked and what they did. And we will welcome Danielle to our session today. We'll turn it over to you. Again, we are recording today's session, and Danielle, welcome again to our program. We thank you for being here, and we appreciate what your information that you'll provide with us. So Danielle?
Thank you, Sue, and thank you everybody for inviting me to come this morning. I'm excited to be spending the day with you. As Sue mentioned, she told you my whole background. So Danielle, I do fundraising events, mostly large galas, auction-based, but definitely other ones as well, depending on who we're working with. This, and then Kids on the Go, as she mentioned, we do provide camps which are therapeutic camps for children with special needs. And we used to do just the summer programming. Now we've expanded into all year programming, thanks to our wonderful donors. All of this is available to all these families at no cost. So it's been 22 years. We're starting our 23rd year, so we're pretty excited. So as we all know, when everything happened, COVID hit. In Michigan, we were officially shut down in March, I think as most of the country was. I had just completed 2 events. One was about 1,000 people, one was 400 just the week prior. And when it stopped, all of a sudden, all the events were getting canceled for the spring, and we were uncertain about what was happening in the summer. And we're out searching for toilet paper, but really I was thrown by the idea that, what am I going to do here? We still have all of these great charities that still need that funding. And so we started looking at different avenues about how we can still facilitate the event. And I honestly, if I thought back then that I'd be sitting here and having more events in 2020 than I did have originally planned, none of them would be in person, I wouldn't have believed it. But that's what happened. So realizing that we had to continue in that, I think I already said this part of this stuff. We decided to look at our annual gala. We needed to find the funds. The kids needed things more than ever now, since they had no stability going on in their normal lives without school or anything like that. So we started looking at our virtual gala, or our annual gala that would happen in November. And we normally would have about 400 guests, and it's much anticipated, and really it's a large portion of our budget for our programming. So with Christy Shana, who's our executive director, and Katie Shubnell, our development manager, we just spent hours on end looking for how to bring it to fruition. We watched a lot of virtual events that people had scrambled at the beginning to put together, and some were great, some were a little rocky, but still good for putting it together so quickly. But we decided we really wanted to make sure that we could bring that same element to a virtual event as we had in a live event, as far as the community feel and the collaboration and that entertainment, and engage those donors still and really get our mission across. And I think that's definitely the one thing you really need to make sure of. It's probably the most important thing, right, as fundraisers, is to let people know and they can connect with your mission and know what's going to happen and help. And I think we find too that the people are out there still that want to support your mission. And even though we were all shut down and we were all reeling, they're out there and they wanted to help. So we wanted to find that way to connect with them. So although we were originally planning a bandstand gala theme down at a local concert area, we decided to keep the theme, and we changed it to a bandstand battle gala to give it a little bit more of an entertainment factor. So what we did was we engaged 6 different bands, and all from different genres, that would compete in the battle. And we kind of did like a little social media blitz about revealing the bands and such like that. There was one a day, and we would release their information. And what was nice about this was it engaged not only our donors, but also from all of these different bands and all their followers and such. So we were able to really showcase our mission and our whole organization to a much broader audience. So this was, I'm sorry, I'm losing myself here. So basically these 6 bands gave us some pre-recordings. We aired the first one of them for each band about a week prior to the event. And they would then voting was open. I was on social media. We distributed through email. People listened to all the bands, and then voted on their favorite to determine the 3 finalists. And during the live broadcast, the 3 finalists would be announced, and then a second vote would come up with the winner. And at that time, voting was donating. So every dollar that they donated in that band's name to Kids on the Go would determine the winner. In addition to that, we kept all of our same components of our auction. The galas, we had our silent and live auctions. We had a live auctioneer and a paddle call, or a raise the paddle to just pledge money, and raffles. So we kept that same thing, but added a little element of something to keep them engaged while on a computer or TV watching. Let's see. So besides the delivery format and the addition of the battle, like I said, much of it stayed the same, but we were also able to profile our programming and our mission to such an audience, because the virtual venue, if you think about it, we don't have to have any limits. So we were able to, instead of having our 400 guests that we normally would house, we were able to open that up. And with our marketing and things like that and the outreach to the other people, we had about 600 registered guests, which the figure equates to more because people had registered a bid, and it might be one person of a couple that registered. So we estimate we had over 800 people. This was also key to that, I think, was that there is a no cost option to attend, where we normally, when we're in person, we got the cost of a venue, and it was, I think our lowest ticket before was 150. So it was cost prohibitive for some to attend, but this gave the opportunity for people to attend at no cost, be a part of it, help, even if they wanted to come and just vote on a band or just listen or whatever, we were able to reach them where we normally wouldn't. One of the really neat things too, where a lot of the families that we help, they normally don't go to the gala, and they were able to have that opportunity to come and see. And we heard so much back from them about being able to see the people who are actually donating. Like, they were just overwhelmed when they would see people, oh, I'm going to pledge $5,000 or $1,000 or 100. So it was a nice connection moment between the donors and sponsors and the families. So one other thing we did, since it was free, but we did, this is a digital image of our invitation. It was actually a trifold, but I didn't know how to put it up here to make it clearer. So that just showcased our program. We did a little description, of course, kind of because it's a little out of the norm of what we were doing. But we offered these party like a rock star here. They're viewing parties. So people had the option of purchasing a viewing party where they could have small gatherings at their home. And we had catering provided by the venue we were actually originally going to use, that would be delivered to their home the day of. These actually, we had a goal to sell like 10 of them, we were hoping, and we sold over 30 of different ones. So we had a volunteer team that would deliver this and a cocktail kit to each of the participants, and it was a big hit. It also gave, I think, that that community feel still, where you weren't all isolated. So it was really good. The other thing we found was our raffle tickets, that we doubled our raffle sales, where I think normally like people would participate in the raffle and it was always profitable, but with having no cost as an option, when they would log on to even just register, they would purchase those because they're looking for ways to support the event. We also saw that same increase with cash donations. They would, if they weren't even buying a ticket, they still would put $100 or $50 onto their registration. So that saw a big increase. One thing that we do with all of our galas, we have corporate sponsors that have different levels of benefits. We were able to actually, we increased this by 60 or 70%. And, we were able to offer them actually more, I think, than what they normally would have got, because here they were in front of an audience that was limitless, double what we normally would have had, and they got to get their message across. We gave them the opportunity too to provide a pre-recorded little message, like a 30-second, 45-second message that we were able to air during the pre-show or during the live broadcast, and so they could reach that audience. So it was nice. And that is all I want to talk about here tonight. I do want to say, though, I just want to end with a couple things. These are unprecedented times, and at this point, we don't know when we will be able to return to our usual fundraisers. So it's not a time to wait. I mean, we need to embrace the moment, because obviously we still need to find ways to reach them. And whether you're usually having like a large gala normally, or a fun run, or a trivia contest, I mean, so much can be brought to the virtual world. With some creativity, it can be adapted and can be very fun and profitable, and keep your supporters engaged. Much of the strategy that we've built to fundraising in the past remains. You just have to switch your tactics how to get there. And remember that, the charities you support are important to you and to your supporters, and they want to contribute in some way. So to provide that avenue for them to do so, I think is worth it, to go for the extra mile. I mean, thank you. I don't want, if there's any questions or anything like
Danielle,
that.
we do have some questions.
Okay.
We want to I'll go through them. How did you manage the raffle tickets virtually?
Well, it's going to depend on your state, okay, if you can sell them. I know that there has been some legislation lately in several states that are allowing where they normally wouldn't allow sales online just because of what is going on. So we had a ticket page that they would go on for registration, and that's where they would go on for bidding and everything else. It's kind of, we called it our virtual venue. And on there, they could order their tickets. So we had, volunteers would just fill them out, send them out, the stubs out to them with a thank you. And then we had our drawing that day. Now, we also had them where they were purchasing them during the event a lot, actually, a lot more. And those we were able to be putting in live, and we would every now and then check in and be like, thank you, so-and-so and so-and-so for we got your tickets. So there was that confirmation to them. And we also, I didn't mention, but part of our event, to engage our donors, we had a chat going as well. And I think that's really important if you're doing any kind of virtual thing, because you want to have that avenue where they're not just actual spectators, they can actually participate. But we were also able to communicate through there that your raffle is done. Thank you for your purchase. Thank you for your donation and stuff like that.
And then the raffle was live, so you actually drew the ticket.
Yes, we did. We drew the raffle live.
What's your planning time frame? How
Oh.
I realized that everything had to switch because we were,
Yeah.
you know.
Ideally for the gala, for the gala, we honestly, it's almost a year-long project. But this year, I think we did it in about 4 or 5 months. We had been kind of in the thinking stage and the planning stage of it because we didn't know what we were going to do. Should we postpone it a year? But once we kind of pulled the trigger on that, it was probably about 4 months of active.
Active. And
Mm-hmm.
what was we talk about committees. How large was your committee? Did you involve the previous people that had worked on the gala?
Yeah, Christy, Katie, and I were the co-chairs, and honestly, we're kind of the driving force in it, but we were really blessed with having volunteers. We had so many people who would come, and they were made all the, put all the things together for the viewing parties and to do the deliveries. We had some people doing acquisitions as far as getting donations for our silent and auction items and in our live. So we probably had a total of about 25 active people that were, throughout the process.
So knowing that this was going virtual and, being in person, there was an MC, I would assume, that you had for your live event, correct?
Yes.
How did you transition that when you went to a virtual event?
Well, I have to tell you that, of course, nothing could be perfect. So we had a little snag with that. So we normally, Brandon Rue, who's a local weathercaster here, is our MC every year or every gala. And he is still sheltered at home. So he's been broadcasting at home, and he's a diabetic, and he didn't feel comfortable coming to the broadcast studio. And there was only about 6 of us in the studio. So we were having him connect through Zoom. 5 minutes into our program, we had all the internet went out at the broadcast studio. So it was a little nerve-wracking. I think I lost about 10 years during that period of time, but we were able to get it back up and going. And but we had a hard time connecting with him through the Zoom. So we kind of had to scramble a little bit, but we were able to get him in. And actually, he ended up calling in at the end so he could at least say the farewell and things like that. His traditional pieces that he normally would compose. And then we also had a live auctioneer that was there in person.
So would you, the goal is to get, I'm saying, is there a different type of a person you would need for an online presence versus an in-person presence?
I don't think so. I think those elements can still remain the same. I do think that, you still need somebody to move your program along. I will say, though, that a lot of the programming that we offered or that we broadcast, and with the other ones, I probably even do more with some other events, is pre-recorded, because so much of that can be done. So the
Right.
people who are there live and who, like an MC, or it's more like narrating the whole evening. And they were able to do that with those other components just being recorded, and they looked live, but they weren't.
So when you do events like this, and you said you had like 800 people, so I'm sure some of our members that are on with us today are like, oh, 800 people, how do we manage that, right? How did you reach your donors? How did you
Yeah.
you've now gone from an in-person event where you've got the dress and the dinner
Right.
and all the things that we've talked about having it for a gala. How did
Mm-hmm.
you reach your donors?
You know what? Whoops. And I should have gone for the end. It was a lot of marketing. We still had we have a database of probably over 1,000 normal people that are following us. And then we really did a lot of outreach between engaging those other bands and their constituents. And our social media person really did an amazing job getting that information out. But a lot of it was word of mouth. I mean, we had some profiles here locally. We encouraged a lot of our families, because we were online, to engage families and friends from all over the country, because we didn't have to stay to the Metro Detroit area. And we did. We had a lot of people from all over the country. I actually had somebody from who was in Korea at the time, was online too, but and they were able to participate. And grandma who's down in Florida was able to go on and be part of it. So it was really nice. And then what we did too is we also, throughout the programming, had a lot of features of our kids and different programming and stuff like that. So we kept reiterating that message just in the cute little clips throughout it.
So how long was the gala in total?
This one was long. It was about an hour and a half, and
Oh,
honestly, I
okay.
think it's too long. It really wasn't too long in this format because we did have those bands and those things. We had a lot to go through, but honestly, with most of the virtual, I would like to keep them under 45 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I think people's attention spans online are probably even more shorter than what we have in person.
Right, right.
But yeah.
So how would you how would you scale something like this? If you're a club that has 15, 20 members, how
Mm-hmm.
would you scale this?
I think that, well, it doesn't necessarily have to be the big auction gala. Perhaps you normally do, or not even normally, but maybe you do like a partnering of raising funds, when people go on and trying to, when you're doing a fun run or something like that, or pledges like that, and you can make it fun between the members and have a one event coming together like in a Zoom, right? And so there's a little competition going. With one organization, I am working on doing a trivia night where people would come in and they're going to actually have little small gatherings at their homes, and they'll be playing in the trivia, and it's all through Zoom actually. And you can do things small. You could do an online auction if you wanted, and just do a silent auction with that's just going on for a week, and then culminate to a raffle attached with it or something at the end of that week for a short program. I just think there's so many different things you can do if you really start thinking about it. I was thinking the other day, like, how can I do a road rally? And I think that could be done too. Obviously, they're not going to be sitting there with a computer, but you can be sending them and then coming back to the event at the end.
So you had mentioned other events that you were working on virtually, as you said, everything had to switch. What other types of events have you done virtually as
Mm-hmm.
fundraisers?
A lot of the galas, because that's kind of what people had normally planned.
Okay.
Right now, I'm working on one that's a fashion show, and it's a Catholic high school that has their fashion show every year. I think this is their 40 something now then. So they had to cancel in the spring, and now they rescheduled for the fall. Then they had to cancel that. So we're planning one in April. And I said, well, we can do this. We're going to pre-record and because there's students, the seniors are part of their coming of age, right? They get to be one of the models.
Right.
and they get their profile and their father or significant person in their lives escort them and stuff. So it's really anything. But, those things we're going to pre-record, and we're going to have different locations for that, and kind of mix it up a little bit, but still have that great element. They already had all their silent items. They actually have a couple of live auction items too that we're going to infiltrate in there, and that part of it will be live, but the rest of it will really be just pre-recording it and getting that that broadcast together.
So in general, what would, if someone was going to do a gala, whether it was in person or in a virtual setting, what would be some tips that you would suggest for people?
There's so many resources online, and you can find it from there. But I think starting small, I think you guys probably are all reach out to your, local businesses and things like that for stuff. But you could just start small, and the big thing is getting the people to come. Mm-hmm. Getting the people to come, making it a little fun, and whether it's 30 or 40 items and they just come on or come in person, do it, scale it to what's appropriate for your base right now, and then grow it, not to start with some huge thing, because they're expensive to run. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of expenses, especially when they're in person, right, that you kind of put yourself out there. And of course, bottom line is we really want to just raise the funds.
Let's transfer over to trivia questions. How do you keep people from, have you thought about how you're going to keep people from Googling answers in trivia?
It's funny, not so much. People would be able to. It's going to be more of an honest thing. It's not going to be something that, we've done them in person before, and, you put your phones in the center in a basket so you can't look. It's going to be running a lot on the honor system.
Okay, right.
Yeah. But it's more of let's have fun and be together. And
right.
Yeah.
So talk about doing a virtual fundraiser when you have very limited technical equipment. And I can, Dwayne's question hits me as a person who's started these chats. I have a computer and a headset, and the question was, you watch everyone else that does podcasts have all this equipment and stuff, and I just hope that my Wi-Fi stays true for the whole session. And I hope that when I, after the recording, when I remember to hit the recording button, which I did, so don't worry. But, how do I transition that so that it's something that other people can look at, right? How do you do that?
Yeah, I have to tell you, I do not have, I'm fairly computer savvy. However, I didn't have a big broadcast background. I definitely have an event background. So I knew all the components. I think there's so much information out there and so much technology that is simple to use. With a simple webcam like you're hooked up to now, I'm assuming.
Right, yes.
Microphone and lighting, that's all you need. If it's doing a small event, it doesn't even need, yes, you could go and have the big broadcast studio or, more of the professional equipment, but a lot of that stuff can be done in-house by yourself. The Bandstand Battle, we did engage a broadcast studio that did it for us, the lighting and things like that. But honestly, the next one I'm doing in February, we're not. We're going to be just setting up a studio in-house and doing it from there. So I think just with a little research into it or some help, I'd be happy to talk to anybody about the particulars about what kind of equipment you would want. But it can be done very easily. It does not need to be a big production.
And I think that's the one thing for me that I have found is, yes, I was doing it without a headset, and then I was like, okay, like many of us, we spend hours on the computer, right? And I said, okay, let's try a headset. I can tell you that this is nothing fancy. I got on Amazon. It's called a gaming headset. It was the one that was on sale of the day. That's what I bought. I just made sure it had a microphone. I wasn't, really worried about it in that regard. And, and I've learned, over time to make sure you have the right lighting and that type of stuff. But even then, no one is going to sit here and, they're not paying millions of dollars to attend these. So the opportunity is there, and it's more of a sharing thing for us to do that. So
Yeah, honestly, I think if you wanted to do it yourself, you could probably do it for under $400 as far as equipment
right,
to really do a nice job.
right,
It's not that big of an investment.
right.
And I do have to say, I have to reiterate here, earlier when I was mentioning about our internet going out, that harrowing time. Now, what I've done is I make sure there's a backup internet source.
Right, right.
So in February, we have one, and I'll be actually running the program off of two computers with two sources, so that one's delayed about 20 seconds. So if something goes on,
You can do
you got
that.
a backup.
You can
So
do that.
those kind of things. You want to
Right,
make sure you
right,
got all those scenarios worked
right.
out.
So, as a consultant for fundraising, what would be the benefits of using a company like yours to help with the program versus doing it ourselves?
Yeah, you know what? I work with a lot of different nonprofit organizations, and some I come in and do from start to finish a huge gala like this. The one I'm doing in February, I actually work year round with them to bring it to fruition. I have that experience as far as project management on it. But I have others that I just come in and, help them with the ideas and maybe volunteer coordination and stuff like that. But I do have a background as far as putting all those pieces together and making sure you're on the right track. Some people I may have just a couple talks with them and get them going, and then see them again at the event and help them so that they are engaged in talking and greeting their donors and having that interaction, where our team is back, we're running the auction, or we're running your checkout and your registration and doing all the behind the scenes stuff to relieve that. So that's where we find where we fit in a lot.
And sometimes that you're the person, like you said, behind the scenes, so that our members and those of us that are hosting can spend the time with our donors and with our
Right.
guests. So I know, I'm sure we can all talk about situations where we've had where, oh, we forgot the, X, or who's going to take care of Y, and we're running around
Right.
when we should be spending time with our donors,
Yeah.
and working with them to get, to get what they need.
Yeah. And build those relationships.
and build
Yes.
those relationships and build those relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
other questions that anyone may have for Danielle this morning? This has been great information. I hope that everyone's found this very helpful. There's some, just some of the tidbits, and I'm sitting here thinking, okay, I remember we had a band at a couple of our Kiwanis conventions. They were called the Next Generation at the time. I still believe that's their name, out of Detroit, and I thought they would be a cool group to to try to do something with. But I think it gives you that option to look at, instead of the black tie affair in the local,
Make it something.
hotel ballroom, how could you take that virtual?
Mm-hmm.
And as you said, you don't need to start with 800 people.
No.
Maybe your goal your first year is to have 40 people,
Yeah.
and test it out, and or get people that can test it for you.
Right.
And that's how I would look at it. It's like, okay, let's try this small. If it happens to go big, it goes big, but let's go
Right.
small and see what we can do.
Yeah, you definitely need to grow it. Another idea I just think about when you're saying bands, I was thinking about this the other day, just having a cocktail hour or wine tasting or something like that. Those are huge ways that you could engage people, have a little socializing, obviously, and connecting with your donors. But also, you can make some money off of that too, where, your price point might be, raise it at $25 a person or whatever, more than what you're paying. And I've been thinking about, you can even add the entertainment option and have a dueling piano player, where they can interact with them. I mean, you can make it something just fun. You don't have to have the big auction or the big gala. It's just, hey, let's get together. We're going to have some wine tasting with a sommelier, and then,
Right.
we're going to be listening to whichever, put your
Yeah.
requests in.
And I know a lot of groups that have done the wine tasting where they've worked with a local,
Mhm.
Store in town or a local winery and set it
Right.
up so the winery, depending on where you're at, whether you can mail wine and that type of stuff, and
Mhm.
everybody tries it out, and the sommelier is there saying, okay, well, this is this wine, this is what and groups that have done,
Exactly.
go out and buy these cheeses and these crackers, and it gives you something to do as well, right?
Right.
To occupy that time that you would normally be out and about, but it also gives you a safe venue to do it at your home. So one of the things that the questions that came in is, and we have people here from all over the world on our call today, is as an organization, of course, we typically get together for what we call a district convention, which would be a convention for our members once a year. Some districts have, they might have what we call a midwinter, or they have a spring conference. What are things that we can do to make a virtual meeting like that, right? You know, you're
Mm-hmm.
going to get maybe a couple hundred people on that. How do we make that more dynamic? What can we do to engage people?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Actually, I attended kind of a trade show type, thing for the event industry, basically fundraising mostly. And they actually had a whole thing set up, and they did it really well, where there were different speakers. I don't know if you guys break out,
We
so they
do,
did
yes.
like breakout sessions. Now there was a whole software component to that. So I don't know what platform they use, although I could find out if you were interested. But it was actually very engaging. They had, times it was just kind of the same thing. You didn't really have to mix it up, but they'd have a speaker that you guys all met at the beginning at breakfast and have your coffee, and they were, just talking, and then you could pick out which session you wanted to go, and they had some very dynamic speakers in different rooms and things like that. They also did like a little social thing at the end of the day where you could, like the same thing, a
Right.
wine or something like that, so that you could have that socialization. Let's think about that, some other ideas
Yeah.
for that one. That's
That we'd love to
interesting thought.
hear.
Yeah, let
We'd
me
love
let
to
me
hear
give some
that.
thought to that. I'll see what I can find out too.
Yeah, because I know there's a software platform, I believe it's called Remo, R-E-M-O, where you go into the platform and there's different couches that you can go join a
Mm-hmm.
table or go join a couch. And I have been looking at that as well as a way for
Yeah,
people to, you go to a conference, if you get into a room and you're like, okay, I've had enough, or, I want to learn something else, you go to another room.
right.
Sometimes that's not always possible with the software we're using. Most of us use Zoom, and I know Zoom is making some changes and some updates based on. I can't imagine what they're going through right at this time with Zoom being
Yeah. We never
all
heard of
said.
them
You
before.
never
I
heard it
didn't hear.
before, right?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So I know there's some other options out there. We do have a presenter coming up for those Kiwanis that are joining us on Thursday night. The Marquis Company, which is the group that does our Kiwanis International Conventions. So you often see that those are the staff at the convention that run around and do, they do the audio and the video and make sure everybody looks good on stage and that stuff. They are going to do a presentation for us at one of our Thursday night sessions on how to manage a virtual event like that. Things that they've learned, because here's a company who's used to being in person, right, at every event you have, and
Right.
now they've had to figure out how to do all this virtual. Now, of course, they have the equipment and they have that talent in that regard, but they're trying to figure out the same thing. So he's going to join us on March 4th. So, some time, but we'll make sure we get that information out. It's going to talk about how to do events in a virtual world. So another opportunity to learn,
Yeah.
more information there. So okay, it's about quarter to 11. Any other questions or for Danielle, or anybody have any comments on events they've tried that we might add to our program today?
I do just want to thank everybody again. And also, I am available if you have my contact information. So if anybody just wants to talk, it's not like you need to commit to me or anything like that. I'd be happy to, if you wanted to bounce an idea off of or how it could be implemented, I'd be happy to talk to you about it. So at any time, just, shoot me an email or we set up a short call or something like that.
Perfect.
But
I did
happy
put
to help.
Danielle's her website in the um, chat earlier, so I'll make sure that information is out there as well. And
Mm-hmm.
Mindy, I'll get to I want to check on that site for sure to make sure that's what it was called. I was only on it once. Let me see if I make sure I got the right one. I'll look it up here while we're talking. Yes, it's called Remo, R-E-M-O .company. And it's they have a free trial. I've used it at work a couple times. We've had it for a couple groups where we they had a staff meeting and everybody was there. So that's the name of the company. So drive-through events, exactly. There's some great drive-through
Oh.
events. A lot of people have had drive-through events. Larry has a question.
I just want to make a comment. Our key clubbers did a gala thing a couple of years, and it was quite successful. But it's now been, we haven't been able. They haven't been able to do it. But we're listening about the virtual. That's something that the key clubbers could do to bring that back as a virtual. And I
Right.
think it would be,
Yeah.
I think it could be quite successful if they were to do that. Renee may be more involved. I think she was really involved in that, the last one that was done. So just a comment.
Right.
Yeah.
Very easily. I think about our key clubbers and our Circle K members who are high school and our college students. You know, their use of this technology is much more advanced than mine, right?
Yeah, there's your volunteers.
There's your volunteers, right? They may be able
Yeah.
to manage it and have the, you know, I would not be surprised if several of them have the equipment in their homes, right?
Yeah.
I probably do. And I should say, when I look at all the events um, that we've done recently, this in 2020, the average we've made is 90% of what they made the previous time.
Yeah.
So that to me is huge.
That's huge. You're right.
I think, so it can be done. Now, I will say there are some that were low in that calculation, but I think with a lot of outreach that it definitely can be done.
And I
Yep.
Well,
great point. I think that, it's there. People, as even Laura mentioned during our early session, people still want to support our organizations. They are still looking for things to do. And as she mentioned, for the last 100 years, individual donations are just as critical to what we're doing. So we talked about earlier, it's not always about the event. Sometimes it's about going back to that individual donor to support you. And people still want to be involved. I don't know if we can, say that everywhere, but I mean, there are still people that are involved. And I know a lot of our clubs, as they're starting to do more things, they're getting more participation from their local communities because people can do it online versus driving, getting a parking spot and that type of stuff. So I think it's great to be able to have those opportunities for us to do that. So Larry.
Now, one other thought, I don't know, maybe this is already, for Michigan has already been planned out, but doing our spring divisionals I don't know if maybe the plan's already in place of how we're going to do those virtually, but that's something we need to really look at some of this software that we can use for our spring divisionals,
Right.
which are going to be coming up here and starting in March. So.
Yep. And I think everybody's looking at that. I know districts all over are trying to figure out how are we going to manage that. I mean, think of the districts that have not done their mid-years or, are looking at their district conventions and stuff like that. So great things. And the opportunity that we all have through Kiwanis is that we can share a lot of this on Facebook and by email. So we'll make sure that we have our contact information together and up, and we'll go there. So a comment was just made, all the Michigan Spring Divisionals will be virtual. So here's a great opportunity for us to get together and figure out how we're going to do this. So Danielle, we may be in touch.
Anytime, just give me a call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I do want to thank those who are in Michigan too. I know a lot of you do contribute to Kids on the Go, and we really do appreciate that. It really means a lot for those kids.
Thank you. We
Yeah.
appreciate the work that you and Kids on the Go does. And unfortunately, wasn't able to be with us. Christy wasn't able to be with us today, but
she had some family issues, so she was sorry not to make it.
Yeah, but we thank you for filling in for her.
Absolutely.
Everybody has everything's they're going on. It's life, right? So for those of you that have asked questions, we will make this recording available. I will make the announcement on the Kiwanis of Michigan Facebook page and on my personal Facebook page, but I just got to figure out how to get it transitioned over to everybody.
How do I get back there?
So we'll make sure that we get all that information out to you. Give me the weekend to get that together, but we'll make sure that information is out there. Again, I want to thank everyone for joining us. Remind you that this Thursday is our first Kiwanis Let's Talk with Brad Boyd at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Thursday night. Brad will talk to us again about virtual meetings and what he's learned doing all these virtual meetings that many of us have been doing for almost a year now. When you think about it, it's been what, 10 months?
Yeah.
And everyone is welcome to join us for those programs. And the Kiwanis Equity Program that we're going to be offering starting in February, that information is also out there, an 8 program series on equity excellence. And as we in today's times, there's never, there's always an opportunity to learn more. Let me put it that way. There's always out there, and we have two professors, one from Michigan State University and one from the University of Colorado, who are putting a program together specifically for Kiwanis on equity excellence and how we can, what what we can learn and what we can do to make ourselves better and our communities better. So with that, we will call it a day. Thank you everyone for joining us. I want to thank Laura Hoover, who was with us earlier today from the Kiwanis Children's Fund. Danielle Brousseau, thank you very much for being with us. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you on Kiwanis Cafe in a month. Thank you.
And as
Take
always,
care.
a thank you to Sue for putting all of this together for us.
You're welcome. Okay, now I'm going to stop the recording.
Stay safe.